So as we move forward with the story, I find myself now in a place where I do get through high school and into college, and I end up in the military. Beyond the military, I start to look at a lot of the black and brown young men who are now in the military with myself. I'm an officer and they're enlisted, and I can see where school has not paid off. Some of the guys are very, very bright, very talented, have a lot of skill. However, they never saw themselves as a scholar. They did not have a scholar identity. So the option of the military for a lot of them was all that was left. Upon my exiting the military, I worked in the community service. In community service, as well as did some substitute teaching. I work with Glass preschools, which are in Greater Lafayette, which was a preschool for students who actually had everything from traumatic brain injuries to behavioral problems. I worked in Providence, Rhode Island in many schools, working with kids after school. So I really got the understanding of what our kids were dealing with. Now, I started to understand the similarities between my family, my brothers, my relatives, myself, as well as those kids I was seeing. What were the commonalities, if any, that they shared? And when I found out there were several that the young kids I worked with led them to not see themselves academically ready for the next step. And I would ask myself, why aren't they ready for the next step? We had to look at factors that were before school, during school, and after school. Obviously, family matters. So what were the family dynamics? What were my family dynamics? And what are the kids we work with family dynamics? Those are some of the things we're going to have to take in consideration when working with students to actually develop this scholar identity. We're calling it, in the, not only with the 9 constructs, but you also have the 4 pillars of the scholar identity model. Again, we'll look at those things more in detail later. Moving along, I found myself at Purdue University in a PhD program, and I wanted to work with these young men who were down in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I found out that so many of them did not have an identity that was moving towards academics. A lot of them were looking just to work the next day, and I wanted to find a way to see if I could determine through research what were the factors, if there were any, that were similarities that ended them up in this program, which was a young fathers program. And if I could determine what factors led them to there, or commonalities I call them, then I could start to decide or determine what we could do at the agency that I was working at while doing my PhD, what we could do to maintain and keep those guys in the programs longer so they can actualize their benefits. Now, these guys were 16, 15, 14, up to 24 years old. And that's when I started to see the continuation. So multiple data points, multiple places, multiple environments, multiple cities, countries. I saw this again and again and again. I kept seeing folks not seeing themselves as academically prepared. What could I do? My research at Purdue University led me to what I called a phenomenological study dealing with young fathers. Out of that phenomenological study was born the scholar identity model. The scholar identity model was then brought with me from my PhD at Purdue in 2004 to Vanderbilt University. 2 years later, I was running a program for about 100 kids here in Middle Tennessee, in Nashville, Tennessee. That program took place for the next 6 years, and I had a chance to work with many kids who had GPAs that were up to 4.5 on the extended scale, down to a 0.8. And I've had some children, young men in the program who in the summertime during the program had ankle bracelets on because they could only leave home to come to the program. So what I found out was that these kids, even though they were academically at the top of the deal or at the bottom of the deal, I found out that when worked and helped to understand their potential, their abilities, a lot of them rose to the occasion, giving them some quizzes and some sneaking some gifted tests and nagliaries and those things under their fingertips. I found out that some of the kids who were at GPAs 1, 2, 2.5 were as intelligent and gifted in certain areas as were the kids who had 3.8 to 4.0s. So for my understanding of what was happening here was that they didn't believe in themselves or didn't have the opportunities, or those who believed in them. What could we do? What could we do for them? I want to leave us with this as I close out this session. Jonathan Kozel one time was in a school in New York City, and he was at this elementary school. And at the elementary school, what he found out was that there were several kids in there, and these are first graders, and every morning he would go in there and they would have this chant that they would sing, la 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 blah blah blah, and if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And he thought that was really a cool thing that they were saying. But think about a first grader saying that if it's meant to be, it's up to them. Now I have a daughter, 2 daughters, and I know that if anything's meant to be, it's up to me as a parent. So I found out that there's some truth to that. However shocking, however sad it is, Jonathan Kozel was right on the money, because what we're finding out was that we have to build a certain degree of self-efficacy in our students, just like we had, just like we have. Every one of us on this call, every one of us who listen to this, have practiced some degree of self-efficacy. And now next time we're going to start talking about how you got where you are. Because before we start looking towards the children to figure out what's wrong or what needs to be done with them, we need to do some inward looking and think about where we are in our lives and how we got to where we are. Not all of us, like myself, started off as high school teachers, high school administrators, or engineers, or whatever our hobbies or habits or things that we've done. We start off as kids. So once we recognize the similarities, then we can understand some of the things that we can do for the kids more concretely. So again, make sure you go take a look at thescholarlyidentity.com as well as the PDF, and we'll pick up later on. Our call to action for you is to do those things, and also write down any kind of questions you might have, because we know that once we do get together next spring after the break, we're going to have all of these kind of conversations, and by the time we get there, you'll know me, I'll know you, and we'll be able to move right along. All right? So as we say down here in Nashville, we say anchor down, and up in Purdue, we say boiler up. So I'll talk to you next time. Thank you for listening. Ciao, and have a good day, evening, morning, whenever you're listening. All right? Peace.